What if Anakin and Padme had Luke and Leia during the Clone Wars? That's what I want to look at today. I enjoyed writing this one, so I hope you enjoy listening. Please leave a like and subscribe, it helps a lot. Let's get right into it. Anakin Skywalker was fighting in a battle on Felucia alongside Obi-Wan Kenobi and Ahsoka Tano when he felt a shift in the Force. A shift that he thought only he could feel, and it was something that was deeply connected to him. Anakin had to retreat and hide behind a tank just to catch his breath as he realized what was happening. His wife, Padme, had just given birth and he was too busy fighting in this terrible war to be there for her. Anakin remembered 9 months ago, his first solo mission when he was assigned to protect Padme. From the moment he'd laid eyes on her in her quarters, every feeling from when he first met her on Tatooine returned. And the mission with Padme was everything Anakin had hoped for. The two of them fell in love. Though Anakin knew he didn't do himself any favors with the flirting, it was something he and Padme laughed about quite often now. But things escalated quickly. Perhaps too quickly. And after Anakin and Padme returned to Coruscant after fighting Count Dooku, Padme revealed the truth. She was pregnant with their child. This was great news. The greatest news he'd ever heard. But it was overwhelming. And the two of them had discussed what had to come next. Over the 9 months, the Clone Wars really began. Anakin was made into a Jedi Knight, and then he was given a Padawan, Ahsoka. He was fighting in all of the most dangerous battles, because he was the best that the Jedi could offer. But here, today, it all seemed pointless. On Naboo, in her parents' home, Padme was going to be bringing their children there, and Anakin was busy fighting battle droids. He promised himself that he would return to her soon, but for now, he must do his duty, and he jumped back into battle. On Coruscant, Chancellor Palpatine sat in contemplation. Not long ago, Padme Amidala had given birth. He had felt it. The emergence of the children of the Chosen One, twins, birthed from Anakin Skywalker and Padme. Anakin, who he wanted to be his eventual apprentice in the dark side. Palpatine wanted Anakin to fall in love with Padme, but children already? But of course, Palpatine had adjusted his plans. Months ago, he'd heard about Padme's pregnancy, and he planned accordingly. Palpatine knew that the most likely result, without his interference, was Anakin leaving the Jedi Order and giving up on his ways in the Force to be with his family. That could not happen. He was the Chosen One, born to be Palpatine's apprentice, and so Palpatine would use the children to accelerate Anakin's descent into the darkness. On Naboo, Padme was watching over her children, wondering when Anakin would be here. She missed him quite a bit, but she understood it was hard to leave a war as a Jedi because your forbidden wife has just given birth to his children. It was a strange situation, and they would be a happy family eventually, but it would take some time. But finally, Padme heard someone at the door. It had to be Anakin, but no, instead it was a different Jedi, Master Kit Fisto. Padme greeted him cautiously at the door, but Fisto did not speak. Instead, he quickly slammed the hilt of his lightsaber right into Padme's head, knocking Padme spinning into the wall. She was going in and out of consciousness, confused as to what was going on, but she regained composure enough to see her parents run into the room, then be quickly cut down by Kit Fisto. His lightsaber swings were clunky, like he didn't know how to use it, but the parents still fell quickly as Padme tried to get back up. Blood was pouring into her eyes. She fell back down unconscious for good as Fisto walked into the children's room. After the battle on Felucia, Anakin had returned to Coruscant and quickly jumped to hyperspace for Naboo, not telling anyone where he was going. He could feel something was deeply off. Padme wasn't responding to his calls, so he flew to Naboo with R2 as quickly as he could, and he eventually landed outside of her home to see the door was wide open. There was a clear mess from a fight or something just inside the home. Anakin thought he could even see bodies through the door, so he sprinted inside, lightsaber ignited, to find Padme's parents dead on the ground from a lightsaber cut. Anakin moved through the home with caution and finally reached the children's room, but there were no children inside. Instead, Padme was on the floor, crying next to their beds, badly injured, and Anakin could not believe what he was seeing. Padme injured, her parents dead, his children missing, and he held Padme now, asking what happened, and a chill ran down Anakin's spine as Padme described what had happened. She went to the door to find Master Kit Fisto, and he attacked her, then killed the parents, took the children. She asked Anakin how a Jedi could do this, and Anakin said it should be impossible. From all of his teachings, all of his life at the temple, all of his interactions with Fisto, Anakin could never have seen this coming. But right now he was angry, frustrated. His children were missing. The war the Jedi were fighting in forced him to be away from his family, unable to protect them. Anakin stumbled over to the security recordings in the office room, turned them back to earlier that day, and was shocked to see the truth. It was him, Master Kit Fisto, entering the home, stealing the children. His movements were a bit weird. He didn't use the Force. His lightsaber swings were heavy. But Anakin was too angry, too frustrated, too fearful to notice. He grabbed a file of the recordings and boarded a ship with Padme. He promised they would get to the bottom of this and find their children. Inside the Jedi Temple, the Council was meeting about the escalating war. They didn't know what to do. Things were only getting worse. It had begun less than a year ago, but already Jedi were dying by the hundreds, and the Republic was growing frustrated by it all. And it seemed like it had no end. As the meeting continued on, Yoda found it strange that Kit Fisto was not in his seat. He was not in battle at the moment, and he was not usually one to miss a meeting, so this was strange. But then Yoda felt something as well. He and all of the council members turned to the door as Anakin sprinted through it. He carried an aura of darkness, anger, fear, and he got to the center of the council, looked around, and demanded to know where Master Fisto was. Yoda noticed Anakin's hand was on his lightsaber, so Yoda used the Force to bring the saber to his own hand, asking Anakin to calm himself. But Anakin only demanded further to know where Fisto was, or if the council was in on it all. He was getting angrier, and soon Windu and Plo Koon were approaching him, asking him again to calm himself, and just tell them what was going on. Finally, Anakin took a deep breath, understanding he did need the council's help, and he wouldn't know if they were in on this, if he didn't ask for their help. And so now Anakin described everything: his love for Padme, his marriage, their children, and the revelation about Kit Fisto. The council was of course shocked by all of this. They all thought Anakin had some suspicious feelings for Padme after his first solo mission with her, but this was beyond what anyone thought to be possible. But they also understood that it was a discussion for another time. For now, they must find out what is going on with Fisto and the children, and so Anakin plugged the recording of Fisto into the council chambers. They watched closely as he killed the parents, took the children, and when it ended, Plo Koon quickly spoke up. He told the council that this could not be Fisto. His movements and his mannerisms were completely off. This had to be a changeling. Plo pointed out that the changeling never used the Force, and they barely knew how to wield a lightsaber, and Fisto was missing from the council. It was likely, unfortunately, that Fisto had died, and a changeling bounty hunter was using him to abduct the children. Clearly, Yoda said, someone knew that Anakin had children, and that person hired a bounty hunter changeling to abduct the children. The council asked Anakin who knew about the children, and Anakin couldn't think of anyone. A lot of people knew Padme was pregnant, but no one knew that he was the father. No one had ever really even asked him about Padme's children. No one except for... Anakin thought about it, and something hit him. Palpatine. But Anakin didn't tell the council anything here. He just said he didn't know who it could be, then quickly left the council chambers. Yoda scratched at his chin. Clearly Skywalker had come to a realization, but there was no stopping him from unraveling this mystery on his own. Palpatine sat in his office and put away his hidden communication device. He had just finished communications with Cato Parasiti, the bounty hunter disguised as Kit Fisto. The children were safely taken to Mount Tantus, and cloning experimentation would begin in a few days, once everything was set up. This was good. The children missing would drive Anakin to the dark side, and in time, the children would be used for his own grand plans. And then, Palpatine watched as Anakin entered the room. Anakin was calmer now, but still frantic, and he began telling Palpatine everything. Palpatine was less surprised, and said he always had a feeling that the mission to Naboo became good for both he and Padme. And and Palpatine offered his warm smile, and said he would do whatever he could to help Anakin get his children back. Anakin still had some suspicions of Palpatine, so he told Palpatine that he truly believed the Jedi were behind this, and that he hated them for it. Anakin was laying sort of a trap of lies to see how the Chancellor would respond, and Palpatine paced the room, contemplating his next words. Order 66 was nowhere near ready. Anakin wasn't ready. The Republic wasn't ready. They weren't frustrated enough with the Jedi yet, but he could still begin to turn Anakin. And so he told Anakin that perhaps the Jedi way was not the only way. He told Anakin that perhaps he was like Dooku in more ways than he knew. The seeds had been planted. But for Anakin, this was confirmation that there was something much more sinister going on with Palpatine. He knew much more than he was letting on, and Anakin was going to find out exactly what it was. So Anakin left the office, determined and ready to find his children, live happily with his family. He would save them. He had to. But he would need help. Anakin spent some time trying to find Captain Rex, and when he did, he asked Rex if he knew of anyone that could help him carry out an investigation. Anakin said he needed a squad that was willing to bend some rules to do what was right, and Rex considered it, then with a short laugh said he had just the squad for the job, a group of mutated clones called the Bad Batch. Anakin contacted this Bad Batch and set up a meeting point on Naboo. After some time, Anakin landed there and met the strangest looking group of clones he'd ever seen. Hunter, the leader, had a very heightened senses ability and tracking abilities. He was among the best at just sensing and tracking anyone. And Wrecker, well, Wrecker was big, the strongest, biggest clone of them all. And Tech had an extremely enhanced intellect, the smartest of the clones, able to hack and look into whatever Anakin needed. And Crosshair, the snake of the group, he could hit any shot from any range with any weapon. He was cold, but calculated, and great at what he could do. Anakin looked at them and knew they would be perfect for this job. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be possible. They had to track the bounty hunter, and it would only then would they be able to find the children. The Bad Batch began investigating the home, looking for anything they could use. Tech was going to any local landing platforms to see if the bounty hunter had gone there before Padme's home, while Hunter, Crosshair, and Wrecker were looking for anything in the house. The investigations took a long while, and Anakin began to get frustrated. But eventually, Tech gathered everyone for a discovery he made. When checking and hacking into all the local terminals, he was able to uncover a message sent from a ship through the communications terminal to a mysterious source. Anakin asked Tech to play the message, and so he did. There was no hologram, only a distorted voice. The voice gave the bounty hunter the exact location of Padme's home, then said it will be easy to break in, as Anakin is off fighting in the war. And then the voice told the bounty hunter to bring the children to these coordinates, and Tech grabbed the coordinates from the message. Now, more than ever, Anakin was thinking this all had something to do with Palpatine. He knew Anakin would be off-world. He knew Padme was having children. He had an inclination that the children were Anakin's. He was the only one who thought they could be Anakin's. Tech brought up the coordinates, and they all boarded the Bad Batch's ship, plugging in the coordinates for a hyperspace jump. They were for the planet Wayland. The flight through hyperspace was a stressful one for Anakin. He wasn't sure exactly what he was going to find here, or who he was going to find here. He could only hope that this was where the children were, but he could also only hope that they were still alive. Anakin contacted Padme, and they spoke together, hologram to hologram, as Padme thanked Anakin for doing this. She was in the Senate, trying to act as if everything were normal, but the two of them were very worried. And eventually, Anakin ended the call, thinking about Ahsoka and Obi-Wan. He hadn't spoken to them in a while, but this was a mission he had to do without any other Jedi. And then he went and made plans with the Bad Batch. No one suspected they were coming. Anakin would go straight in through a main door, distracting everyone, while the Bad Batch sneak through any hidden entrance they're able to find. They are there to grab the children and get out of there. Eventually, they landed on the planet far away from the mountain where the coordinates were sending them to. It was clear that there was some sort of base there, and they took off walking through the forest, while Wrecker waited in the ship to pick them up when necessary. And after a long while of walking, a new ship appeared flying above them, a single Republic shuttle that Anakin recognized immediately. The Chancellor's shuttle. And now he wished he'd tried to bring some Jedi friends with him. Anakin knew now he was not right to trust Palpatine, and from here, Anakin split up with the Bad Batch as he climbed to the main door, while the clones secured the mountain for a new way in. Palpatine entered Mount Tantus and began checking on the progress of everything going on. The base was still in its early stages, but things were coming along nicely, especially with the children here, hidden away. He continued on talking with each of the doctors and Sith loyalists here, when an alarm began to go off. Palpatine swiftly turned to see Anakin Skywalker standing at the entrance of the mountain. Palpatine had a feeling this may happen, but it was still an extreme surprise. How did he find this place? Meanwhile, Hunter, Tech, and Crosshair found a secret opening to the mountain, likely for construction security personnel, and they used a thermal scanner to see who was inside. They didn't find many people, but there were certainly some security forces. They would be able to handle it, and Hunter placed a detonator on the wall. They all hid behind a tree as it exploded. Smoke filled the room from the explosion, and the 3 clones moved through the smoke, thermal sensors on, expertly taking out the 9 security troopers inside, trying to locate them. Crosshair and Hunter lined up on either side of the wall, taking on reinforcements, while Tech quickly disabled the intruder alarm before it could go off. They continued on through the halls, rising up through the base until Crosshair told them to hang on. From his position, he could see an opening about the exact size of the detonator that showed him the reactor to the entire base. He pulled out his sniper, attached a detonator to it, and expertly fired it onto the reactor to the base. They would blow this place on the way out. And so they continued moving through, taking out security troopers hired to work here, and eventually got to the cloning chamber, where they found the children. Anakin stood at the doorway when he heard his comlink beep. He answered discreetly to Hunter, telling him that they found the children, and they also found a way to blow this base from the inside out. Anakin quietly told them to blow it as soon as they were safe, and to fly the ship just outside of the main door. He will be there. Hunter said it would be done, and Anakin knew it was time to stall. Darth Sidious walked up to meet Anakin at the doorway now, considering trying to talk him down, turn him to the dark side for good. Sidious told Anakin that they need not be enemies, that they can work together, bring down the Republic, rebuild it in a way they want it to be. Sidious said that he and Padme can rule, and their children can grow in a safe and secure society. Anakin was not considering any of this deep down. He hated Palpatine for taking his children, but he could put on a show. He walked up to Palpatine, kneeling in front of him, saying that he accepts this, and that he will become his apprentice. But Palpatine was no fool. He felt Anakin's deception in the Force, and blasted Anakin with lightning, sending him flying back towards the door. Sidious was laughing now, as Anakin struggled to get back up. He blasted Anakin again, saying that he has lost, and that his children will be raised as Sith. The Jedi will die, Padme will die, only the Sith will win. Sidious's exclamations echoed through the chamber as he took it all in. The Chosen One was a failure for his apprentice, but he would use his children. But as Sidious was laughing, a giant rumbling sound began to shake the mountain, and Anakin stood up, smiling, and said, "Incorrect." Sidious turned around, and Anakin took the opportunity to use a huge force push to throw him further into the base. Sidious tumbled forward, then turned to look at Anakin, face distorted in anger and horror, as the explosion from the bottom of the base reached the top level, engulfing Sidious. Anakin backflipped as far as he could, just as the explosion was about to hit him, all the way to the open ramp on the ship of the Bad Batch. As he landed, the ship took off, barely escaping the explosion as the mountain crumbled, with Sidious inside. Anakin ran through the ship to find his children, seeing them with his own 2 eyes for the first time. He wondered how the rest of the war would go on without Palpatine, but he didn't really care. Right now, all that mattered to him were his children and his wife. What Anakin did not know was that deep inside Mount Tantus was the communicator that kept all of the battle droids activated, at least temporarily, and Palpatine had hidden it here, never expecting this base to be found, and with the destruction of the base, all of the battle droids were shut down until the Separatists could regain control of them. And by the time Anakin returned to Coruscant, Dooku had been arrested, Grievous was destroyed. No one really knew what happened to the droids until Anakin returned and described his mission to the Jedi Council, and then to the Republic Senate. Anakin said to the Senate that he was tracking down a Sith Lord, known as Darth Sidious, and ultimately, it ended up being Chancellor Palpatine. So Anakin and a group of clones did what they had to do, destroying this base, destroying the Sith Lord, and in turn, shutting down the battle droids. And ultimately, they would win. The Republic could overwhelm the Separatists quickly, without their droid forces. Dooku was not ready for it. Grievous was not ready for it. It was over. And in the Jedi Temple, it was concluded that Kit Fisto had been killed, so the Changeling could use him, and Fisto's council seat was given to Obi-Wan. With the war over, Anakin decided to take some time off from being a Jedi, go to Naboo with Padme and the children, promising to keep them safe, until they were ready to begin training. Ahsoka became the Padawan of Obi-Wan Kenobi, at least until Anakin was ready to return. Anakin was grateful that he was able to save his children. He and Padme were safe, and all was well. And folks, that's where our story ends today. Hope you enjoyed. Yeah, I enjoyed writing it, enjoyed reading it. Hope you enjoyed listening to it. Once again, please do leave a like. Please subscribe. Channel's growing pretty good. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.